Welcome to the Great Basin Prescribed Fire and Smoke Transport Briefing for Monday, February 12th. Over the last couple of weeks, we've continued to have storms move across the Great Basin and bring well above normal precipitation, especially to southern areas of the Great Basin, into much of Utah and parts of southern and eastern Idaho. Some areas that have been left out of this above normal precipitation but have had some light amounts have been central Idaho and parts of northwest and western Nevada. Also, parts of the northern Sierra have also not seen quite as much precipitation as areas further south. New snowfall over the last 72 hours as these systems have been exiting the Great Basin and high pressure builds in. We have seen some new snowfall over some of the higher terrain of Utah and parts of northern Nevada and into Idaho and Wyoming. Most of these amounts have been on the modest side. Again, this is mainly the systems that have been exiting the Great Basin, and we did see more additional snowfall with these systems prior. Our snow depth is indicated on the right, and you can see from the snowpack we are doing fairly well across much of Nevada and Utah into Arizona with near or just above normal snowpack. We are also seeing some normal snowpack conditions up in southern Idaho, but areas that are still below normal are much of Wyoming into central Idaho, and of course the Sierra into western Nevada is generally the lowest in the Great Basin and below 60%. Looking at our satellite loop from this morning, we have flat high pressure dominating the Great Basin with some clouds spilling over the top of the ridge. There's also a weak disturbance embedded in the westerly flow moving into the Pacific Northwest. This will bring some light showers to the northern portions of the Great Basin through midweek, and then we will see some stronger systems well off the west coast approach the area towards the weekend. So for today, again, that moisture continues to spill over the top of the ridge in mainly Idaho and Wyoming with drier conditions further south. Winds will remain generally light, some breezier west winds up into Idaho with some better dispersion in local areas, but for the most part, poor dispersion across the Great Basin. And you can see from the transport winds, again, some pockets of breezier winds up north, but otherwise very low wind speeds underneath the ridge in much of Nevada and Utah. And to go along with that, mixing heights remaining on the low side. Looking at temperatures and relative humidity for today, we will see temperatures on the warm side underneath this ridge of high pressure, with highs generally just above normal over western areas of the Great Basin and closer to normal as you move further east. And then relative humidity will remain generally above 30 to 40%. As we move into Tuesday, this weak system embedded in the upper flow tracks across Idaho, so we will again see some showers and clouds over parts of Idaho, northern Utah, and into Wyoming. Generally, still light winds, and winds actually decrease from what we'll see today in most areas. So you can see from the transport winds, generally very light region-wide with the exception of parts of western Wyoming, and we could see some breezy winds along the ridges of the Sierra south of Lake Tahoe. Otherwise, mixing heights on the low to moderate side. Temperatures will warm over the eastern half of the Great Basin and remain generally steady over western areas. Relative humidity, again, remains on the low side in the far south, about 25 to 30%, but otherwise above 30 or 40%. On Wednesday, we will continue to see, again, that flat ridge, but still a deeper area of low pressure off the Pacific Northwest coast, which will help funnel in some additional clouds and some light snow showers, especially for far northern areas, or a mix of rain and snow showers in the lowest elevations. Otherwise, just cloud cover for parts of central Nevada into northern Utah. Transport winds will pick up a little bit on Wednesday, especially over northern areas where we could see some gusts about 30 to 40 miles per hour, especially in the higher terrain. And then mixing heights will also improve some as well. Temperatures remain fairly steady on Wednesday, maybe at some degrees of warming in the far east, but generally similar to what we'll see on Tuesday, with relative humidity similar as well. 3-day precipitation, again, you can see most of the moisture moves across Idaho and Wyoming with some lighter precipitation, some heavier spots in the higher terrain of Wyoming or central Idaho, but really the heaviest precipitation remains along the northwest coast. As we move into Thursday, these systems kind of start to exit, so still some moisture in place for clouds and light showers going through Thursday, especially across Idaho, Wyoming, and northern Utah. And then you can see the ridge building along the west coast. Transport winds will be on the rise with some northwest flow, so we will see some better dispersion on Thursday. As we move into Friday, the ridge starts to track further east with drier conditions, but you can see the larger area of low pressure off the west coast. And this will generally push more moisture into the Great Basin by the weekend from west to east. And on Sunday, you see that moisture remain in place, mainly over the western half of the Great Basin as well. This low will continue tracking south and east over the southern half of the Great Basin as we go into early next week. So precipitation for Friday through Saturday, you can generally see just some light amounts of precipitation. However, we will see that change as we go towards the later portion of the weekend into early next week as that larger system approaches the west coast and the Great Basin. Probably some spots that won't see much precipitation will be eastern Utah and parts of the Arizona Strip. And then this is the 7-day total, but it does not take into account that last day, so a little bit more precipitation across Nevada and Utah towards the middle of next week. The 8 to 14-day outlook, taking us from February 19th through the 25th, shows definitely kind of a mix of near normal or just above normal temperatures, but really the main story will still be the precipitation. This will remain above normal or well above normal for much of California and probably western and southern areas of the Great Basin, but still seeing that above normal trend even push further east into much of Utah, Idaho, and western Wyoming. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back on Wednesday for the latest updates.